My name is Mariam Ibraheem. I'm religious persecution survivor from Sudan. Originally, I was in death row for crime of apostasy and between 2013 2014. I survived, whatever situation I was in Sudan, and it's not always the end of the story for people who are in similar situation in Sudan or somewhere else. And it's encouraging for me to say that, because when I share my story and I remember the thing that's happened to me, I don't remember it as a traumatizing, story, but it's a victorious story. When I share my story, it is not my story. It's a story of too many people who are in similar situation is still there, and also people who advocate for my family and for me during my ordeal. And it's also for me as a believer, it is victorious, because I am here because not because I done something on my own, but it's by God's grace that I'm able to be here today and to speak to people and meet people who advocated for my release from prison. I was born in Sudan for a Muslim father and Christian mother, and I was raised by my mother. She's a Christian, and she led me to the church and to Christian faith, and it's something for prohibited in my country. We live under Islamic Sharia law. By the law, legally, I am supposed to be a Muslim following my father's belief or faith. I'm married to a Christian man, so I grew up in the church. I'm married to a Christian man, and these two things are crimes in the eyes of the law in Sudan, in my country. I was charged by apostasy and adultery. I grew up with my mom, and she was very protective over us. I was born in a refugees camp, and we moved from the refugees to a small town. We lost my father when I was in young age, so we grew up with my mother. We don't have much of knowledge about my father's family. So knowing I didn't have much of detail of the story, but from what my mother told us, he was involved in honor killing in his family. It's conflict zone and the tribalism and violence in the region. So he was involved in honor killing of his sister and another man, because there's a rumor in the neighborhood or in the community about her having relationship with a boy from a different tribe. So, and when people talk like that in the community, this brings shame to the family. So someone have to be responsible in bringing the family honors back, so and wash off that shame. The other man's family was from a different tribe, and that's can break up and open tribal war between two different tribes. So they finally decided my father have to flee the area. So he settled near to where my mom settled in the refugees camp in Gadarif in the eastern side of Sudan. When we moved after my father passed, and we moved from the refugees camp, my mom had to change our last name. So my father's family went track us down. So that's how I grew up. I don't have connection with my father, but when I grew up and I moved to Khartoum, went to college, somehow my father's family was able to track us down and knew where I was at, and I was at the church. So they particular, following me, taking a picture of me, and I was married at that time, and I have my first child. So I was called into the police station and was questioned about my belief and about, my child and my marriage. And when I provided the document for my marriage, that's a proof of adultery, that because in the eyes of the law, I'm a Muslim woman, and I'm not supposed to marry to non-Muslim. My marriage from the church my marriage certificate was proof of adultery, and me confessing that I am a Christian and instead of a Muslim is apostasy. So that's why I was charged with adultery and apostasy. And adultery, at the end of the trial, my sentence was 100 lashes, And for apostasy, I was sentenced to death by hanging. The trial was like no more than 3 minutes, or no, for 10 minutes. It's just a question, about my faith, whether I'm Muslim or Christian, and I would say I'm Christian. So I was given the 3 days after the end of the trial. This is like last chance after too many tries, and consultation with imams and the judge. And yes, I was given 3 days before my sentence. During the beginning of the trial, I really didn't know, because I was living like a normal life. I wake up in the morning, just doing my daily routine. I got the call to come to the police. The only thing was in my mind at that time, because I have a business back in my small city, and I thought one of people who are on my farming land is involved in some trouble. That's why I needed to go to the police, because I don't have anything on my mind, that I have never committed any crime. But the way I was questioned, I find kind of at the beginning, I didn't really know what's going on. There's something just kind of missing, and I was shocked. My life was turned upside down. By my first day in jail, because, the legal system is very tricky, in my country. And for me, like, I'm a girl, I'm not supposed to respond or defend myself or look at the judge's eyes when I'm talking to him. So, and I didn't follow that, because the last trial I have to speak up. When I responded to the judge got very angry, because he was like, he said, I want to save your life. That's why I want you to listen and say yes to me when I ask you if you are Muslim. So, and I said, no, I'm not, and I'm already saved by knowing Christ. So I don't need you to save me. So he got very angry, and he said, okay, let your dead God save you from me, from death. So he signed me off to be sent to jail that night. And it was Christmas Eve. I think when I got really scared after that, and I know that I'm heading to jail tonight, and I'm holding my son. One of the processes they do, I have to go through medical evaluation, and including like they want to check, make sure I have malaria or anything. They do pregnancy test, and my husband happened to come from the state just for a visit at that time. It wasn't my plan like to have a child. So one of the tests, when the test came, said I am pregnant. So now I'm receiving news that I'm pregnant, and I'm holding my son. He was only 9 months. I'm heading to jail on Christmas Eve. So I start to cry. So the guard was happy, the court and officer. So they said, oh, she's going to come back and tell the judge. He told me, like, you just walk in and tell the judge I'm a Muslim and you can go. But I can't go, because I have to give up my child, and I have to go with this, extremists, what they claim to be my brothers. So I told him, no, I am not going to do that. So, okay, they throw me in jail. So, and it happened to be Thursday, and it's the next day is Friday, is a Muslim holiday. So I was taken to small cell next to the courthouse by the police station. When I walk into that room, I noticed like the women there are scared, bruises, black eyes, and at the dirty floor. And the room was so cold. Everybody like, what did you do to be here? So, and I didn't respond. I just sat down. I was scared, and I closed my eyes, and it was just my son. He was crying, and he fell asleep. During the beginning of the trial, my church was always there, so I have to talk to the priests and nuns, and they offer for me like to be helped to leave the country, and I said no. This is the last option I would do, is to run away from this. I'm not running. I'm staying. I'm continuing the trial. It isn't just about what the imam or the judge said or what the other family members said, the option that you have to be smart and choose life and choose, run away. It all doesn't make sense to me. I remember my priest was like, he said, Mariam, this is between you and Jesus. What you're experiencing, we are as a Christian in this country and foreigner who experience persecution and discrimination in many different forms. And I've seen how they treat, Christian. But what you're experiencing now is just like what the Bible tells us. Father, I'm not Peter, I'm not Paul, I'm not people in the Bible. He telling me all this story. It's not because how bad you are, he said. This is about your love for Jesus. So when I closed my eyes and I prayed, and I felt this soft hand on my shoulder. I still, until now, when I face certain situation, I remember that moment. And a deep voice say, you are not alone. So after that moment, I was never scared. And this supernatural peace that I know that I am not alone and I never felt abandoned. I knew that the moment I walk in the court, God had purpose and there's a plan for me and for my children, because my plan is to start a business. My children will go to Catholic school in Sudan and do this and do that. Now all this was turned upside down. All's gone, and I am here facing death row. I knew that there's something God had for me. He said, my plan is not to destroy, not to kill you, to give you hope and a future, and I have that. I will say that I did pray in that dark prison cell. My son, my little boy, and I. God answered our prayer through people, because God uses people. He uses people to do his work. Do you remember during the evacuation in Afghanistan? You see how people are scared, and mostly their only hope is America. People see America as like the beacon of hope. And it's inspiring for me, like, to see some of the groups and people I was able to connect with, how they care about the persecution, about, the human rights violation. We have to, I pray that the church will really stick to that. It's challenging to stand up with the oppressed ones, and yet is needed. When I feel like being asked to not to speak about these issues because it makes somebody uncomfortable, it makes someone else. But yet that is a real story of someone, and it's real struggle, and it's real situation that someone else is facing, including myself. As a believer, when we do trust and believe in God, we should not fear no man. From human perspective, the measure is like, everything looks difficult, but with God, everything is possible. So I wasn't really prepared to go to jail. I was scared of everything. Like, I was cleaning freak. Like, I have to stay in prison, When I am weak, then I am strong. I was beaten, I was tortured, and yet I feel so strong to look in the eyes of the person in front of me and not to feel angry at them, and not to be mean, and not to respond the same way they are treating me. That's love your enemy and pray for those who persecute you. Practice faith, really, We have the truth. We know the truth. But when you witness injustice, you have to speak. You have to take a side. And I will always take the side of the oppressed one. That's what Jesus would do.